Hello, I'm back in Dallas. I was in Santa Rosa, California last week. I'm Gustavo Tolosa, and Dr. McDougall is of course, in Santa Rosa, California. We want to welcome every one of you logging in from all over the country and the world. And without further ado, I want to introduce here Dr. McDougall. How are you doing today?
Good. I mean, we really had a fun week last week, didn't we?
It was just superb.
Yeah, it was super. We changed 56 lives. It's people when they come in, it's hard for them. They're in a new place. You gotta meet new people, find their way around. They don't know Dr. Lim or myself or Mary or anybody. It's hard when they arrive. It's hard on them and it's hard on us. But I tell them the first night, I say, by the end of the program, you're all going to be really happy. You're going to be on the least number of drugs that you could be on, and you're going to feel the best you've ever felt. Most important, you'll be in control of your health. And even though there were some rough spots, we accomplished that, Gustavo, within 10 days for sure. It's probably within 7. Plus, we had one other great thing happen during that event, and that was because of you. And that is we had a chance to film an interview in the dining room where we eat at the program. And then we had a chance and it worked out, thank goodness, because you were persistent. You were able to track down the files, and we have them up from last week's webinar. And it gives you a chance to see the clinic. We sit in the dining room, start out with, we show you the dining line where we serve like 15 different things at a meal. And we take you into the break room and we show you where the classroom is, and you hear a class going. I think Jeff Novick was speaking that. But we show you no people. And then we take you out to the main swimming pool and show you that one where some people swim, but it's open to the public. And then there's another swimming pool right behind where our classrooms are, which is at the best athletic club in Northern California. It's called the Montecito Health Club. And I think, with my limited experience, that's probably the best one that I'm aware of. They have a large lap pool for adults, a salt water. They have all the exercise equipment. They have beautiful tennis courts. I mean, it's really, really nice. And of course, that's part of being with us at our clinic is access to pretty much everything that goes on at the Montecito Health Club. There are a few classes you have to pay extra for, but not much. So we got to do that. And then we got to go show them the big rooms where we're having the meeting next week. Is next week, I don't forget the date, sometime in September of 2017. We have an intensive weekend where we'll probably have close to 200 people there. Certainly 150, I believe, are already signed up. But I showed you the big rooms. We're going to hold that. We're going to feed all these people. And we're Jeff Novick and Doug Lyle and myself and Mary and lots of other of our staff will be there live to talk to you and answer some of your questions, but no medical care there unless you've been a patient already. And the only way you become a patient is you attend the 10-day program. And then we see those who want, Dr. Lim will primarily see those who want as an official medical visit during this weekend, or once a month we set these up. And then we took them out to the parking lot where we showed them the swinging flamingo. And I wouldn't tell you about this except you can see all of it in last week's webinar. The other thing that I noticed, I watched it, Gustavo, is I really have a bad lip. I don't see that much, but I kind of watch myself walking down the hall. And anybody that questions whether or not I got horribly injured when I was 18 years old with a massive stroke, watch that. You'll have no doubt. In fact, you'll say, well, how in the world does this guy carry the grandkids and windsurf as injured as he's been for 53 years? But that was just kind of a side note that I noticed. Thanks to your filming, it's just what an impaired person I am. And of course, I've told you folks many times, if anybody questions what I do, you just say, well, of course, he has brain damage. He had a massive stroke at 18. He's old. He's more than 70 years old. So why should you listen to him? But anyway, we went out to the parking lot. We almost got hit by a car. I think they'll notice that. And you didn't take my nasty word out, but they can't recognize it anyways. And we showed them where the couple shopping centers are they can walk to. We showed them kind of the directions that all of us live in. We all live quite close to the clinic. Doug Lyle does sometimes, but he lives in other places other times. And of course, Jeff Novick lives in Florida. And by the way, the only place in the world that Jeff Novick speaks live is at our programs. He speaks live no place else, hasn't for probably 3 years. So if you want to see Jeff Novick, there's only one place you're going to see him, and that's to come out to either the intensive weekend or a 10-day program. And we run a couple of intensives a year. We have one in let's see, today's Thursday. So
it's September 8th through 10th.
Right, it's probably a week from now. Yeah. Anyway, we showed him the ballrooms where we hold those big meetings. Then we went outside and we kind of showed him the direction of the shopping center, the direction that Mary and I live in. And I was about to show him the direction of 3 airports. One was to the left, which is San Francisco, SFO, and Oakland, OAK. You're welcome to come in to either of those airports, and most people will fly from Europe, of course, too. But you're looking on a Friday afternoon at 3.5 hours in heavy traffic and drive home traffic on a Friday afternoon to get up to our clinic, about 3.5 to 4 hours. That's okay. You just plan on it, read a good book. And that's how far it is from Oakland or San Francisco Airport to our clinic on a Friday afternoon. Other times it could be as little as an hour or 45 minutes or an hour and a half. But rush hour traffic on Friday, it's going to be at least 3 hours and probably 4. But once you get there, you got 10 days to relax and enjoy yourself, and that's no problem. And to get home is an hour and a half back to the airport. That's fine. But I also wanted to point him, and thank you, Gustavo, for putting it in the webinar, that if you just look to the right, there's an airport about 10 minutes away. It happens to be the one where Mary and I used to keep our airplanes that we piloted, but we don't do that anymore. But it's now very commercial. So we have United flying in there. We have Alaska. We have Sun Air, I believe, from Minnesota. We have all kinds of flights locally into Santa Rosa, which even on a Friday afternoon is less than 15 minutes to our clinic. Easy minutes. But we encourage you, if you can, to come into Santa Rosa, leave from Santa Rosa. There's direct flights from San Diego, a couple from Los Angeles, 2 areas of Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland. Those are Alaska. There's probably another 1 or 2 from Alaska. And then United just started flying from San Francisco. And I heard Sun Country's doing a flight once a week from Minneapolis. And there are probably some other commercial airlines that fly right into our airport. And I want to tell you that because people arrived at the clinic either for the intensive weekend or the 10-day, and they're just all upset. And I don't blame you. You just spent 4 hours in rush hour traffic. But we warned you, so it should be okay. Or you can fly into Santa Rosa Airport, and it's very, very close. So that's the thing I didn't show in that. But we really encourage you to watch the webinar that Gustavo was so talented and kind to do for us last week at the clinic, if you want to have some idea what the clinic's about and meet some of the staff. So thank you, Gustavo. That was a beautiful piece that you put up, and people can watch that. It's up and online now. As I say, I watched. I really enjoyed it, except for the star looked a little bit on the lopsided side.
No, it was a great joy to do that together, and yeah. I appreciate it too.
Yeah, but you have any comments about your week with us? You've been there several times, Gustavo.
Yes. No, it's always. I've been several times, but I never get tired of hearing the information, and it's always very inspiring. That's one of the things that I think everybody leaves with this extra shot of inspiration and energy.
Right. We have all levels of education in terms of people. We had a general surgeon,
right,
very well certified medical doctor there. We may have had 1 or 2 other medical doctors. We had a couple of medical students, which we try and always have, our medical students and residents, which BTW, by the way, we pay for residents to come. For learning students, we pay them to come. We don't pay for regular doctors to come. It's your dime. So we have a foundation that brings them there. It was a great weekend. And again, 56 people. Some started out happy, but a lot were dragged there. They started out very, very unhappy. And it was a tough week to get them through it, but everybody left not only happy, but confident. They have a level of confidence in their health that is really hard to get back. I mean, after you've had heart surgery or your breast amputated or whatever's been done to you, the damage psychologically done by the testing and treatment and the negative feelings you get from the caring staff, the doctors and nurses, leaves you psychologically damaged even after you get better. Even after you change your diet and your arteries are clean and the cancer's slow, you know everything's going to be better. You know you shouldn't waste any more of your time worrying about your past health because it's wasted time. It's time you're not spending with your husband and wife. It's time you're not spending with the grandkids. So to regain the confidence in your health is difficult. And one of the things that we do at the program, in addition to getting you off all unnecessary medications and teaching you how to make things right, is we give you confidence that you're not a bad person. You're not a dying person. You're not a sick person. I mean, you were, but you're now either not sick or less sicker. I wonder if that's proper English, probably not. Than when you came in, and now you have confidence. That's what you need, confidence to gain. Well, Gustavo, I'd like to go on to another subject before we get to questions.
Sure.
Big article came out, an advertisement from industry this week. All of you got it. You didn't realize it was an advertisement, but it was an advertisement. And I used to write a lot about these advertisements. They're called clinical studies, randomized controlled trials put out by highly respected scientists who publish in Lancet, the British Medical Journal, etc. They publish for the industries. They're advertisements, but you don't know them as that. You think that these are honest people trying to help you. Well, this week's headline, which disturbed a lot of people, after probably 50 people wrote me, I said, okay, I'll write a general note. I'm not going to write an essay. I'm not going to write a thorough rebuttal. I'll write you just a quick note and tell you why the study was wrong. And so I sent it, and most people were very appreciative. Most felt cheated because I didn't write, or there were a few that felt cheated because I didn't write an entire chapter, an entire book on how this study was done poorly. However, you can find extensive discussions, like at Huffington Post by David Katz, an extensive discussion on why this study was methodologically horrible and intended to show that eating the Western diet was good for you and eating a starch-based diet will kill you. That's the intention. Believe me. They certainly buttered it up, so to speak, so you may not have recognized it initially, but a lot of people did. Katz did. Kim Williams, the head of the American College of Cardiology, did. Many other people, and they wrote about it. And I just wrote you a short note, enough that I think you will know, and if you're curious, you can find out more about why this was an advertisement and what it said. The title of the article, the headlines that you got in your newspaper were, "Why Cutting the Fat and Loading Up on Carbs Can Lead to Poor Health." Now, what does that say to you? It says, eat more meat, don't eat potatoes, rice, and corn, and sweet potatoes. Doesn't that say that? That's what everybody read. Just pour the olive oil on, pour the corn oil on, put more pork chops on your plate. That's what people read. It was the study was actually titled Associations of Fats and Carbohydrate Intake with Cardiovascular Disease and Mortality in 18 countries. Yes, from five different continents. Amazing. That should have covered everything, shouldn't it? A prospective cohort study. In other words, it wasn't a randomized controlled trial. It was just an observational trial. But what they did is they set up the observations so they could get the results that they wanted to see, i.e. promoting their personal diet, the scientists, and promoting the current eating pattern, which the dairy and the meat industry make so much money off of. And as a secondary benefit, the medical businesses, including the doctors and laboratories and pharmaceutical companies, make a huge profit by you being lied to. It's just advertising. It's not a conspiracy. It's just lying to sell products. All right. Well, I thought I did enough, to say to people. And most of you really appreciated that I made a comment. Like I said, it wasn't an essay. I just made the points to tell you why this was a bunch of advertisement and to be unbelieved. And you can find lots of other people who will tell you the same thing. This is dishonest research published in what used to be a respected journal, The Lancet, and it's pure and simple. They should be sued. They should be asked to withdraw the article. They should be asked to give myself or somebody else who knows a different truth, an alternative fact, other different fake news. Give us a chance to tell you why this was just an advertisement. Okay, what I said, it was the main thing about which every other review has said. But they say it in many words. I just said it in a few. It said, this is a study comparing the health of people who eat junk foods in the US and Europe. Well, they also included Africa and Asia. But it's a story about people eating junk food, garbage. And they used China as an example, but they didn't use Japan, which is the longest living country, still has the longest living population of any country. And it was people studied within the last 20 years. I forget the exact date, but wasn't for a long period of time. And it was in 5 countries. The 5 countries are countries that now eat the American diet. Not all of them used to. Let's see if I've got them here. I thought I had them here for you. Let's see. Yeah, maybe. Well, they're European countries. China, here it is. Overall, there's China, there's South Asia, there's Europe and North America, there's South America, the Middle East. Do you know who lives in the Middle East? Do you know the wealth of the oil tycoons in the Middle East? Do you know the wealth of the general population? Do you know what these people eat? Do you know the incidence of diabetes? It's like 15 to 20% of the population pre-diabetic, at least 50%. Before 1980, they report in a paper in JAMA in 2013. Before 1980, at least 90% of the diet of the Chinese was from rice. It used to be white rice. But before 1980, they had virtually no type 2 diabetes or obesity. They say less than 1%. To me, that means none. But things have happened in China. China is now the richest country in the world economically. And so from 1980 to 2017, that's 37 years. Things have happened. They now have lots of Tesla supercharger stations in China. When I ride on an airplane, if there are Chinese people, Asian people on the plane, they're usually taking up more seat. Certainly, they're always taking up more seat than Mary and I do, but they're usually taking up as much seat as any American on that flight or any European. And so let's see, Africa. Well, I had data. I presented it to you, all kinds of data, which shows you that before 1980, before the revolution of CNN News and global transportation expansion, et cetera, to where everybody can eat like rich people. Reports now are that 12% of Chinese have frank diabetes, about 12 to 14% of Americans, similar in Canada and New Zealand. Right now, published 2 years ago in the British Medical Journal, they told us that in India, just in the last few years, it's happened so that now the middle class is as fat and as sick as the upper class in India. The poor class, economically poor class, still has a ways to go before they can afford to get out of eating their typical breads and rice and typical Indian foods, so they can afford to eat like real rich people do, like Americans. Well, the middle class in India has learned that, and they do it, and they now have the same amount of obesity, same amount of diabetes as the people in the US and in New Zealand, and because they eat the same diet. So I tried to tell you that. And I gave you a couple of quotes from the article, and I sent that to you, and most of you really appreciated I also sent you the funding of this particular study, which happens to be by several pharmacologic companies. Well, it's more than just a coincidence. You got to get the money from someplace. Anyway, it talks about in the study how the carbohydrates that people ate were refined carbohydrates. You see, back before 1980, they ate carbohydrates, but those were corn and breads and rice and potatoes and sweet potatoes. See, Peru, South America, the Andes, famous for potatoes. Asia, famous for rice. We've talked about this. We've talked about my experiences as a peripheral involvement person in the Vietnam War. There used to be no fat people. They did beat us in the Vietnam War on rice. So anyway, the way they lied is they looked at at populations, 5 continents, 18 countries, but they all eat the Western diet. And they find that those who eat more candy bars, more sugars, more sodas, more cakes are sicker than those who don't. Those who eat all those cakes and cookies also eat the most animal foods. I showed you in that particular area. I gave you 2 links. One that shows in Asian countries the consumption of rice has decreased after the last 30 years. Yet the incidence of disease has become epidemic. We're talking about obesity, diabetes, etc. In Asia, the rice intake has decreased. That's the documented data. So the carbohydrate intake has decreased, and the intake of fat and animal foods has doubled. Yeah, that's what I sent to you. And you can easily look up that research to see it's true. So if fat and animal food has doubled in the last 35 years, rice intake has decreased, and now we have a study that shows you that eating carbohydrate is bad, you got to say, somebody's manipulating the data. Somebody's not telling us the whole truth. Somebody may have a reason for lying to us. Well, the reason is to support the status quo of how these scientists currently eat themselves with their families, and maybe the drug companies that funded it. Certainly the food companies were happy in terms of the meat and dairy and fish industry. They're thrilled by the study. But you, as a consumer, and your wife and your children and your parents are doomed by this kind of lying. It's lying. Anyway, some of you wrote me about the study. You read the study yourself. Well, you can't because it's copyrighted, but your library will get it for you. I wrote a little bit about it, just to put in the title, various places on the internet. You can see what other people have written, like Dr. David Katz, I told you, wrote a thorough, critical, medical review of that particular study, and did probably what I should have done, but didn't feel like spending 1 or 2 days doing it. I thought I did enough by telling you what the study was about. It was about a whole bunch of people who eat candy, sodas, and cookies. And those who eat more, they're called carbohydrates, are sicker. Big surprise. But they do not talk about starch, which is always the case when these advertisements come out, is they always combine rice, corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes with sodas and sugary cereals and cookies. They do. When they do the analysis, that all goes into one bale called carbohydrates. And then, if like in this study, if you're talking about oils, it goes into, they separate them different kinds of oils, some being worse than others, and give it that advantage. So you can find some good about eating fat and oil. This is lying, but it's just business, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, thank you for letting me put that note in your mailbox and to tell you the things that are important. Number 1, that is this study of 18 countries, 5 continents, is about people who eat rich food, not traditional people. And 2, what's really happened in countries where people have eaten traditional foods over the last 35 years, if you look at their overall food intake, like particularly in Asian countries, their carbohydrate in terms of rice, not in terms of candy bars and Coca-Colas, but in terms of rice, has decreased, which is their main food. It was 90% of the food before 1980. So, carbohydrates have increased. The other thing, the third thing I want to make sure you knew is at the same time that carbohydrate, in other words, soda, Coca-Cola, cake increased. At the same time, the total amount of fat, this is vegetable fat and animal fat, and particularly vegetable fat, and the total amount of animal consumption, this means dairy and meat, has more than doubled. The consumption more than doubled. The consumption of rice has decreased. I gave you the link to the research. If you want to look it up, show your husband, your friends, your relatives, those unconverted, go ahead. But I just wanted to address that with you. All right, Gustavo, that's all.
Very good. Thank you. No, that's wonderful, because questions that we get every week are people, and this study says this, and this new study says that, and this person says, and they're, regular public, it gets confused because they don't know a lot of.
Well, that's part of it. They don't know. And number 2, what they do know is promoted by money.
Right.
as it is with everything, as it is with cars and refrigerators and everything. Money
It's,
drives the world.
it's just that this is about people's lives.
When it comes to your diet or killing your children or your husband or your grandparents, it's just money, folks. Don't take it personal. And that's why you're confused, is because lying is profitable. Fake news, alternative facts. I'm learning about those every day when I turn on the news. Well, it doesn't skip your health and your nutritional needs, those two concepts. There are lots of alternative facts, and there's a lot of fake news. And what you got last week was the worst of fake news, because it was disguised as science. So in truth, it was an advertisement. It was a lie. All these researchers should be ashamed. They should never be allowed to publish again, in my opinion.
Exactly. Well, Dr. McDougall, you mentioned it a few times. You mentioned diabetes, and we have people writing almost every webinar saying that they can't get their numbers down. Now, if I hear you correctly, most or a large percentage, or maybe most, you can now corroborate, of the people that actually go to your 10-day program, either they're off insulin or decrease, but they do well. What do you think it is that people that go to the 10-day program experience that the person that is at home trying the program and following strictly, what's going on? What do you do there? What kind of magic goes on in Santa Rosa?
Yeah, we see this a lot. At least every program, we're happy to have you. Believe me, we understand. At least every program, somebody comes in and says, I followed exactly what you told us to do for 3 years. I haven't lost a pound. I'm still 100 pounds overweight. My cholesterol has gone up, etc. Those kinds of things. They say that. And I addressed that a lot in my last month's newsletter, which was, I believe, August 2017. Some of the frequently asked questions and so on. Yet I followed the diet strictly for 3 years, and it didn't work. But interestingly enough, and we saw that this program, we see it every program, is at the program where we can feed you really tasty food and you get to eat as much as you want, you still lose 3 to 5 pounds. Your cholesterol still drops 22 points on the average. So maybe you're not, maybe I didn't convey the program correctly in terms of rules. Let's just say that may be one of the problems. Is that you aren't following it correctly. That could be it. Let's blame it on me as a communicator. So that's probably the main reason we see people who follow the diet strictly get better at the clinic. We published our results on 1,615 people. We published in October 2014. Nobody's criticized our data because it's true. I published even before that. I published it about 15, 20 years ago from St. Helena. Nathan Pritikin published almost the exact same results 20 years ago. So the program does work. It always works. Why it didn't work for you at home? Let's just say my advice is to eat simpler and stop going out to eat. Simpler means like Mary's put on some beans for us tonight. We'll have beans and rice, or beans and mashed potatoes, and eat simpler. Just eat a starch with some non-starchy vegetables and fruits. Just something you like. Did that answer the question, Gustavo?
Yes, it did. I mean, I have heard it so many times, Dr. McDougall, from people that go to your program, that when they go, it's like this veil disappeared from their eyes, and it's like, oh, now that I came here and I ate here for 10 days, all 3 meals, and now that I heard Jeff Novick and Dr. McDougall, now I get it.
Yeah. It's a steep learning curve. This is not like going on a low carb diet like the Atkins diet. Go on one of those diets, all you do is you get in your car, you drive through the fast food window lane, you roll down your window and you say, I want a burger, and you throw away the bun and scrape off the pickles and the ketchup and onions, and there you're on the Atkins diet. That's simple. Just scrape off, just Just eat the chicken, throw away the potatoes when you go to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Well, you got to scrape off the batter on the outside because that's too much carb for you. So it's an easy learning curve to follow a low carb diet because you already like meat. It's every place. You just eat it and boom, you're done. But you're not satisfied and you're sicker and you really won't want to do that. To do our program could be as easy. You could make mashed potatoes and water, live on mashed potatoes and water, like Andrew Taylor did. And many other people that have been studied and published have lived on basically potatoes and water. But you can pick any starch you like, and you can live on an underground storage organ, starch, like potatoes and sweet potatoes, those store calories underground. You live on those alone and water. Above ground storage organs, which are seeds, those would be grains and legumes like rice and beans, etc. You can't live on those alone with water. You must add a source of vitamin A or C, which could be as simple as a flowerette of broccoli, a slice of orange a day. It could be that simple. And of course, there's this whole B12 thing that we've addressed many times. But we can make it simple too. But otherwise, Mary has published, and I've told some of you, and I'll tell you all, she invented low-fat vegan cooking. Mary did back in the late 70s. And she's probably published, just fewer than 4,000 recipes. There are 1,000 in our McDougall Cookbook app, which is like less than $5 you can buy. So you can make a big deal out of it if you want. You can make a different recipe every meal, every day for years. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about doing it simple. Just make it simple. It drops your food bill by at least 60%, maybe 80%, depending on where you're eating, what you're eating. It's clean food. You don't have to wash your dishes much because there's no grease on them. The earth is happy. Boy. I'll tell you, it's almost scary for me to read the newspaper every day. I don't know how you folks feel about, when I read about the ice caps and the thaw and the Alaska permafrost and read about all the things that are going on and how desperate most people are getting. They're almost desperate enough to turn to the immediate, dramatic solution of changing your source of calories from animal foods, livestock, to starch. But you change the amount of calories produced by 17-fold when you make that change, and the amount of protein by about that much. And measurements of environmental damage show that the environment is damaged 100 times more by growing beef than by growing potatoes. Anyway, it's time to change. And a lot of people are starting to see that, with the weather in Texas, that area of the country. They're starting to say, hey, maybe there is a problem here. Maybe we need to deal with this. Maybe we should do something as desperate as eat mashed potatoes. Yeah, it could be that bad. Well, think about it, folks. I think about it every day, especially when I see one of my 7 grandkids.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Dr. McDougall. I still think that the industry has so many people confused, and some people know there's something wrong with the environment, but they don't realize the impact that meat and dairy production has on the...
Well, studies like the one that came out last week helps them to
right.
to do what publicists have learned to do, and that's to create an element of doubt.
Right.
You don't have to convince people of another truth.
No.
It's just create an element of doubt, and then the consumer will do the rest. Because us as consumers, we love to hear good news about our bad habits. We want to do things as easy as possible, make as little change as possible. So you just tell me that it's good for me to do things I want to do, drive polluting cars or, eat tri-tips all the time. I want those kind of good newses. Yes, I do. But it's not true.
Unfortunate, yes. Well, Dr. McDougall, I wanted to ask you a question that a lot of people have been asking, and Well, actually, in this 10-day program, I think there were 1 or 2 people that had this issue, that people that actually need to gain some weight. And one particular person that wrote here today says that she or he, I don't remember now, read your January 2012 newsletter, in which you indicated that a small amount of dark chocolate was acceptable in this diet. And it says, I'm trying to gain weight, but I'm concerned about the fat content in the chocolate. How much is too much, or how can I gain weight?
See, case in point, Gustavo.
You see, that was, why do you think I chose that?
All the things I've written is something about chocolate. Case in point. I don't remember writing that about chocolate, but chocolate is a plant pod food. It comes from a pod of a plant, and in that sense, it's okay. It's has no cholesterol. It, chocolate's okay. But the problem is you don't eat chocolate. You eat milk chocolate. You have all kinds of other nasty ingredients mixed up with the chocolate to make the chocolate cream pie, or the chocolate candy bar. That's if I did talk about dark chocolate, it wasn't the Snickers candy bars that I used to love so much that I'm talking about. I don't know. What was the question again, Gustavo? I got carried away with, boy, I love chocolate. I want to hear you write more about how good chocolate is for you. That's what I heard. What else was I supposed to hear?
No, I mean, this just this person wanted to know how to gain weight. And
that's my May 2003 newsletter. It talks about I'm too thin. How do I gain weight? I wrote that in May 2003, so that's 14 years ago. I also wrote it, I believe, in my November 2015 or my January 2016 newsletters. There's discussions about looking good, but May 2003. There's Walter Kempner's weight chart there, which you all hate to see. Walter Kempner says that somebody at a certain height will weigh such a weight with clothes on, and you get scared, but I assure you, when either Mary and I step on the scale, we fail Walter Kempner's weight chart. We are fewer pounds than he says we should be. And we feel good, and we don't feel like we should gain any weight at all. I'll just give you a hint. I'm 6 foot tall, and I'm fewer than 150 pounds. I'm not going to tell you how many fewer, but if I wanted to gain weight, I know how to do it. I eat nuts and seeds and avocados. And if I was really desperate, I'd go back to my favorite pepperoni pizza, which had a half an inch of cheese on it, but I probably haven't had that in over 20 years. But when I was eating that and burgers every day, people are surprised. And I wish I had some pictures, but I don't. But there was a time, I believe it was as a senior in medical school, where I got free food as a reward for working hard for nothing. In the hospitals, I could go through the cafeteria line and get free food. I did. And I say I'm fewer than 150 now. Well, as I remember it, I was at least 228 at my top pounds. So that's like 80 pounds. I was 80 pounds heavier. I also had a massive stroke, had a cholesterol 338. I was a very sick young man and child. Whew. Thank goodness I learned this by age 28, and because I'm alive at age 70.
Right. Well, Dr. McDougall, how about if you mention a little bit, maybe we could just briefly mention this in a 30-second commercial on every one of your webinars. People that ask questions such that we have covered over and over, just tell them or guide them as to where they can find this information, because we keep getting questions about arsenic in rice, which you've written, we've done webinars, and can I eat potatoes if I am a diabetic, things like that. Would you just take a few seconds to?
Well, there are a couple of ways to go about it. And by the way, I use both of these myself, and so does Mary use these tools. So we can't remember everything either. The first thing is to go to the search section. Big tab on the homepage says search. And you hit that tab and you put in your word, arsenic. And my December 2014 newsletter pops up, arsenic and rice. Or whatever other word you want to put in, rheumatoid arthritis or juvenile rheumatoid arthritis or cholesterol or whatever. You want to know what I've written about it, just hit the search engine. Or you can go to Hot Topics, and it's organized under nutritional and medical hot topics. Like, for example, under medical, it talks about multiple sclerosis, kidney disease, arthritis, heart disease, high blood pressure. Articles I've written about it. And I tried to list the articles that I think are most relevant for you first, and then went down the line. There may be 30 articles under some of these topics. I've been doing this a long time. I've been writing this newsletter since 1986. I know that's a long time. And it's been online since 2002, free. I do remember most of what I've written, and the reason is because it took me a week or two to write it. And you asked questions about where that article is, and I've referred back to it. So my memory is pretty good, but we still have to resort, both Mary and I, to the search engines and the hot topics. And I'd ask you to do this because you're going to get a far better answer than you will if you call Carol at the 800 number where you register for clinics or weekends or whatever. And she indirectly mails me next, or you email me directly. I'm going to give you the same answer that you're going to get at the search engine, probably initially. So if you read that first, the articles I've written, and then you ask your question, it would be a much more relevant question for you because you already know what I have to say about this, that, and the other thing. And you could ask about what personally concerns you, which I didn't cover. That's when to ask the question. So use the search tools on there. This website is very expensive for Mary and I to maintain. And everything's free. And we do it because we'd like to help you. And it's our obligation. So take advantage of some of the tools. I think you'll find our website one of probably the most information-filled of all websites. And I'm not just talking about medical websites. And one of the easiest to use and one of the best done. I mean, I would, except for some of the high-tech tools used, I would compare our website to General Motors or Ford Motor Company or Kraft Foods or whatever else they put out. I think our website is as well done. Certainly, there's not as much money that went into it, but the results are far better than any other website I know as far as usability and information. So that's drmcdougall.com.
That's right. And Dr. McDougall, when people have questions, because they do email questions about specific food-related things or recipes and like that. So we'll leave that to Mary, right? I mean, they can also type it in the search box. Is there a way to email Mary, or is it better to just...
Yeah, type in the search box. She has probably 600 recipes up there of the, let's guess, less than 3,000 or 4,000 that she's published. So, ask your question in the search box first. You may email Mary directly. She has a direct email address, which is on the website. Or you might just email the website, which would go to Carol or Heather, which is office@drmcdougall.com. And then they'll send it to the appropriate person, such as myself or Mary or Jeff or Doug or maybe to you, Gustavo. I mean, once in a while we get a letter about how much they like the webinar and want to thank you. So I pass those on to you.
Thank you, Dr. McDougall. Well, we can do one more question and then we'll finish for today. I told Dr. McDougall, everyone, that I'm going to do a very short cooking demo of something that I'm going to make today. So if you want to stay over for 5 minutes, I'll show you what I'm making and how. There's a question that we haven't had any questions for a while about pregnancy and babies. So there's a question here that says, I understand that breastfeeding until 2 years of age is ideal. And I read on your website that in case it's impossible to get human milk, to use hypoallergenic cow's milk formula. After weaning, should we use other drinks or plant milk for young children, or is water and a starch-based diet enough?
All right. Well, there's a lot of questions here. As far as pregnancy goes, because we've had a lot of pregnancy in our family recently, and as a result, 7 grandkids. I wrote an article about pregnancy, which is my January 2011 newsletter. I think you'll find it comprehensive, well-referenced, and something worthwhile for your OBGYN doctor to see, and any OB nurses to look at or OB dietitians to look at. So that's January 2011. And then in a chapter of a book I wrote that we may be discussing called the McDougall Program for Women, there's a whole chapter on breastfeeding. And there's probably some things I've written on breastfeeding just to type in the search engine. Essentially, it comes down to this, and don't be offended, but this is it, is there's only one food for human babies. And that's clean breast milk. Clean means mother ate good, because whatever mother eats, that means fats and poisons and whatever she eats that's in the food ends up in her breast milk, and the baby gets it. And the breast milk was studied by the Environmental Protection Agency, and they studied about 1,400 women, their milk, in 48 states. That was back. They've done it recently too, so it's not like old data. In fact, I gave you the new data on the Eskimo milk being the most toxic milk in the world that I'm aware of, and how you should bury it as a waste hazard, leftover milk from Eskimo women who eat the Eskimo diet. Well, they did this study of these 1,400 women and found that all of them, their breast milk exceeded toxic levels for things like DDT and PCB and other environmental contaminants, exceeded toxic levels known to be tolerated by human beings, including babies, all of the samples of women from 48 states eating the Western diet. So mom must eat clean milk. You feed clean milk exclusively, no water, nothing else, until 6 months. The breast milk changes based on baby's needs. It does that by itself. And at 6 months, baby develops hands coordinated enough to grab whatever is in mother's hand, develops some teeth so it can chew solid food. So at 6 months, naturally, the baby reaches out and grabs food. That food should be starch and fruits. Vegetables taste too bitter, but it's okay. You can feed them vegetables. And so you add starch and fruits, and starch and fruit content goes up, and the breastfeeding goes down over the next 2 years, and you can quit at 2 years. You can quit earlier. Ideal, if I had to pick a number, is 2 years. You can't breastfeed for 5 years. Some people do. But yes, and then as the baby is weaned, the baby goes on to starches, vegetables, and fruit. But children are very active, and they may need extra calories, and that's where high-fat plant foods come in, like various kinds of clean peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, etc. So you can feed them more fat, more healthy sugars, dried fruits, etc., for them to get more calories easily. And I do recommend that. There's a whole article on children. Go to my hot topics, go to children and pregnancy, and you'll find both articles. The first two listed are those articles, one on children, one on pregnancy. So, yeah, that's the way you feed kids. You can feed them higher fat plant food.
Right. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Dr. McDougall. I have kept questions that we were not able to cover. Next week, we'll be back. The following week, we have Dr. Lyle, who's going to present a lecture that he has never presented, and it's about night binging. And I think it's going to be incredible to hear. And then in September, we also have Dr. Lim as a guest.
Well, you got a full list of experts. I guess I'll just take a few days off.
What let
you get the chance to work and meet people when you say September 8th, 2017, when we run the intensive weekend, which is the most information and personal contact you could possibly get it from us, if that's what you want. The least amount of money, the most experience, the best experience of the food and the staff. That'll happen September 8th through 12th, 8th through 10. Yeah.
Yes, and people can go right now to drmcdougall.com and register.
They should soon, because all the rooms at our clinic will soon be sold out, and they will put you maybe a few hundred feet away at another hotel, or maybe we'll tell you about the Hyatt and Marriott and so on. That's 5 miles away. You can always come. It's just if you want to stay with us, which is much more convenient at the resort we run our program at, you best call now, because I believe the rooms are almost gone.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is a great weekend. I am very, very sorry and sad that this time I won't be able to go because I have a prior commitment, but I'll make it to the next one.
Well, the next one will likely be in February. No,
Right.
no guarantees. And the next 10-day program won't be until December.
December, right.
And it's not because we don't have interest, it's because we're running programs for corporations.
Right.
So we have several business programs coming in, and we really, if you know a business that wants to increase their profits, that means by decreasing the amount of money they spend on sick employees and also increasing the effectiveness of their employees, then you should send them to one of our corporate programs like Whole Foods and CenturyLink, the telecommunication company does. And we're hoping many, many other companies will give us a chance to make them more money.
Right. I mean, it makes total sense.
It's all about money, folks. We can make more money.
You can help them
just one heart surgery from one of your employees can easily be more than it will cost you to send 150 employees for us to educate them.
Oh, yeah.
So they don't have diabetes, heart attacks, constipation, etc. So just balance the numbers. Let's see, I could spend $300,000 to $500,000 on a bad bypass operation for one of my employees that I really like, who will end up with brain damage likely, etc. I could do that. That's how I could spend, say, $500,000. Or I could send 100 to 200 of my employees to the McDougall program, and the return would be huge in terms of healthcare costs. It would spread like an infectious disease around the company, so lots of other people would get advantage. Now, there are some people, lots of, Gustavo, I have to say, just to close, I've been in this business for half a century. I've been trying to do what I've been trying to do for 4 decades, 40 years. It's finally happening. It's finally happening worldwide. We have some real important things to tell you about different countries around the world who are getting involved in the McDougall program and similar. We'll tell you about different companies that have got founded. I mean, finally, Gustavo, but I'm getting pretty much too old to enjoy all this effort. But Heather will be there, and you'll be there, and Mary. I'm going to stay alive so I can enjoy the effort. For that reason at all, I'm going to be around for 20 more years, just so I can enjoy the fruits of Mary and my work and your work and everything. I'm going to sit back and enjoy.
Of course, you deserve it. And we want to see you for at least 20 more years, if not more.
Okay. At 70, okay. I think as I stumble down the hall and watch the video, as long as I keep stumbling pretty good, I'll keep out there.
You'll keep it going.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. McDougall, for making the time. We all appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So very much.
Thank you, Gustavo. I hope you have a nice cooking demo. People are doing right now.
Very good.
I'll see you next week. We have like every Thursday, we've got some great plans for you.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you.
See us for a weekend or a 10-day.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Very good. Well, next week you can tell us how things are going with the 3-day weekend.
Well, that'll start the day after.
It will start, but
So by that time, the people who are coming are probably packing their bags and they're on the way.
Yes. Exactly.
It was a pleasure, Gustavo. Thank you again very much. Bye-bye.
Me too. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.